You're seeing that happen in various other types of infrastructure, and it's going to happen to video as well. It's beginning to happen. And this is something that we call visual collaboration as a service, or video conferencing as a service. You can call it either way, but that's essentially where we are heading towards. So a telco deploys the video conferencing infrastructure or visual collaboration infrastructure in their cloud, and as an organization, you can either buy video endpoints, put them in your conference rooms, or you can have soft video codecs sitting on your devices and be able to have a visual collaboration experience without the expense and without the effort of putting together an infrastructure within your own organization. So that, in fact, is happening in India today with some of our partners.
Now, I'd like to speak about the numbers and trends, but before that, a final question on where do you see this industry of visual collaboration 10 years hence? Because from the past 10 years, we've seen a sea of change. What next after a decade?
So I think one of the first things is that if you look at us as a country a while back, if you look at the early 90s or if you look at the late 80s, well, even voice was something to us which was foreign. You wanted to make a telephone call, you perhaps either went to somebody's house or you went to a PCO and you made a call. Today, voice is a reality which exists everywhere. Everybody's got a cell phone, everybody's got more than one cell phone today. At least the number of connections in the country is close to 750 to 800 million. So pretty much everybody has access to a cell phone. Now, one of the phrases that you hear very commonly now, especially from service providers, is that video is the new voice. So 10 years from now, I certainly expect that visual collaboration is not something that is something which is still eliciting questions like this, but it is something that is the norm, and it is happening in multiple different varieties. It is happening in rooms like this. It is happening on the go. You are sitting on your car. You're using some kind of a mobile device to be able to call in, have a chat. You should be able to have some kind of enhanced reality options so that you can make whatever notations you want, and that can be seen on the other side. So you are collaborating, you're sitting in your car, if you're being driven, certainly, not while you're driving, but so that visual collaboration or video conferencing to you is something which is second nature. At least, at a bare minimum, I expect that is what would happen.
Fabulous. Neeraj, let's take a couple of minutes to just speak about general trends and numbers that that can be highlighted. Globally, what do you see? Trends in visual collaborations. What's the market that you see? What's the potential that exists in the coming future?
So I think if I'll go back to something that our CFO presented actually on October 8th at the NASDAQ conference. Now at the NASDAQ presentation that we made as a company. Now, at that point in time, our CFO talked about the fact that the current addressable market was about $5.4 billion at present. And this excludes actually looking at video conferencing or visual collaboration as a service. The visual collaboration as a service market was expected to be about $2 or $2.2 billion in this year or in the coming year. And the expectation is that the market is going to grow to well over $7 billion in the next 2 to 3 years, which is traditional video conferencing market. And the VCaaS or visual collaboration as a service is going to grow far faster, and that's going to go to about $5.4 billion. So on a combined basis, we see compounded annual growth rates of about 27% in this industry, which is actually given the IT industry, that is surprisingly high. So I would say that in the visual collaboration space, we are within one of the few segments of the industry which is growing at that rapid a pace.
Well, those are interesting numbers. It raised both my eyebrows when you threw that 27% at me. But within India, Neeraj?
So within India, if let's just look back at 3 years ago, for instance. So if you go back to about 3 years ago and to where we are today, Polycom itself, we are at about 2.5 times the revenues that we did at the end of 2009. So within a space of about 3 years, we've grown about 2.5 times. That's phenomenal growth by any stretch of imagination. So the growth continues, even though last year, 2012, was not that terrific a year as 2010 and 2011 have been, but certainly the growth continues. Even if I look at 2012, our growth in terms of pure sale of codecs for video conferencing rooms like this was in the double digits, high double digits actually. So in that sense, the growth in this particular space continues. We've seen a slowdown in various industries, but I think visual collaboration is always going to be one of those industries, at least for the next few years, which is something which is still a nascent industry, so to speak, in many ways, and which is something which continues to grow at a much faster pace than the rest of the market.
So you just talked about a slowdown, in 2011, in 2012. How were the years 2008 and 2009? Because of the global recession, did you see a greater growth in teleconferencing products, or was that something that pinched the teleconferencing industry as well?
Right. So, well, first of all, let me just make a slight correction there. So I would say we saw a slowdown in 2012. 2011 was a phenomenal year by any stretch of imagination for Polycom in India or globally. 2012, we did see a slowdown, but that again, was well below the levels to which the market slowed. So Polycom still continued to exceed the market.
Okay.
Now, if we look back at the financial crisis years, so to speak.
Right.
So if we look back at the 2008, 2009 years, there was a slowdown. I think the general kind of common wisdom was that video conferencing perhaps would not see that level of a slowdown, given the fact that there would be cuts on everything else. So there would be money spent on visual collaboration and video conferencing, and that this would continue to grow. In reality, that didn't happen. There was a slowdown at that point in time, even in this industry. Keep in mind the fact that when you're setting up facilities like this, there is a large amount of capex which is involved.
Right.
People have started moving now towards towards OpEx offerings. But at that point in time, OpEx offerings were still something which were not really the norm. So there's a large amount of capex involved, and capex is not something that any CFO was willing to spend at that point. So yes, certainly a slowdown was there at that point, but perhaps less than what the rest of the world faced.